Hello, Yates County and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through this short weekly podcast, we at the Yates CCE hope to bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. So let's tunnel ahead with this week's invasive insect, the emerald ash borer. First discovered near Detroit, Michigan in the summer of 2002, but believed to have arrived in the mid-1990s, the emerald ash borer has spread to 36 states and 5 Canadian provinces, and is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of ash trees in North America. Originally from Asia, and thought to be introduced in the US through wooden shipping crates, they were found in New York in 2009 and have been confirmed in all but 3 counties. The adult beetles are about half an inch long, metallic green, and are the only stage of the life cycle that doesn't occur within the bark of the tree. They only live for about 3 weeks, but females can lay between 40 and 200 eggs in the crevices of ash bark. The eggs are rarely seen as they're only about 1 millimeter long and well hidden. When they hatch 2 weeks later, the larvae chew through the bottom of the egg directly into the tree. The larvae are cream-colored with 10 flat bell-shaped segments making up its abdomen and are on average 1.5 inches long. For the first year or two, it tunnels and feeds on the tissue of the inner bark, or phloem, the cambium, and the sapwood. The inner bark is the food pipeline for the tree. The cambium is the part of the tree that's actively growing, producing new bark and wood based on hormones passed through the phloem from the leaves. The sapwood is how water moves from the roots of the tree to the leaves. The S-shaped patterns, or galleries, created by the larvae as they wind back and forth feeding, disrupt the flow of nutrients in these 3 layers, making the larval stage the most destructive of the emerald ash borer's life cycle. Eventually, the larvae create pupal chambers where they overwinter, gradually transforming into adults. The adult emerald ash borer emerged from the tree in late May by creating a distinctive D-shaped exit hole that's about 1/8 of an inch wide. So, most of this borer's life occurs under the bark of the ash tree, and the insect in its largest stage is only 1.5 inches in length. This does not make spotting this invasive very easy. Instead, infestations are typically spotted by the damage done to the tree itself. The tree canopy prematurely turns yellow and experiences dieback, where the tree begins to die starting from the tip of its leaves back down the younger shoots, spreading to the larger branches. Epicormic sprouts, or suckers, start growing quickly from dormant buds along the trunk and the branches. Vertical cracks appear along the bark of the trunk as well, exposing the damage normally hidden underneath. It's also very common for woodpeckers to peck off the outer bark of the trunk in search of the larva. All species of ash are vulnerable to the emerald ash borer, and once infested, most trees die within 2 to 4 years. The death of these trees go beyond the tragedy of diversity and habitat loss in our forests. Ash trees make up about 8% of all trees in New York, and were commonly planted along city streets all over the eastern U.S., especially after the native elms were lost to the Dutch elm disease. As the ash trees die, cities have to pay for them to be removed, as they pose a significant public safety hazard. Ash is also a commercially valuable species, as is commonly used for baseball bats, flooring, furniture, and other lumber. Black ash is a cultural keystone species for many American Indian and First Nations groups, including the Haudenosaunee, or the Six Nations Confederacy in New York. It's been used for basket making for generations and is revered as a spiritual and medicinal resource for several groups. There are mechanical, chemical, and biological control methods for dealing with the emerald ash borer invasion. We won't be getting into them today, but if you'd like to learn more about the emerald ash borer, please visit the Emerald Ash Borer Network at emeraldashborer.info. There, you can find research on the different management and control methods, maps of the insect spread, and general and detailed information on the emerald ash borers and the preferred food choice, the ash tree. The last thing we would like to cover today before we wrap up this week's episode is what you can do to help stop the spread. Emerald ash borers typically fly less than a mile from the tree that they emerge from. The infestation should not be spreading at the rate it has been. Unfortunately, the beetles got some help from humans transporting firewood or nursery stock. Long-distance movement has been directly traced to these two sources, but moving firewood is especially impactful. Unless the firewood has been packed with the USDA APHIS heat treatment seal, or state equivalent, it's not considered safe to transport. Note, this is not the same as kiln-dried. So how far is too far? The general rule of thumb is firewood should not be transported 50 miles from its source, and 10 miles or less is best. For more information on the Nature Conservancy's Don't Move Firewood outreach campaign, and to see a map of firewood rules, regulations, and recommendations in different states, please visit don'tmovefirewood.org. Though the New York DEC is not actively managing emerald ash borer infestations, they are still collecting information on new locations. They're also collaborating with the U.S. Forest Service on lingering ash citizen science projects to identify potentially resistant ash trees to collect and conserve seeds from those trees for future restoration efforts. To learn more about these projects and to see how to get involved, go to monitoringash.org. As always, if you see any invasives in your area, including the emerald ash borer, log the sighting with IMAP Invasives. And that's it for this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be back to terrestrial plants with a giant species that leaves a lasting impact. Until then, we at the Yates County CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.